Hello fellow YouTubers, and welcome to John's Workshop. I don't have any electronic projects to show you today because today is Philosophy Day in the workshop. Yes, I did say philosophy. But I do have a disclaimer for you. Anybody uncomfortable with a purely atheistic discussion, please switch to another YouTube video now. I'll give you a moment to do so. Well, if anybody is still with me, I have a question for you. This is the question that affects every man, woman, and child on the planet. Here it is. Did God create man in his image and likeness, as many believe? Or did man actually create God in his image and likeness, as some of us believe? This is a question that men of faith, men of science, and philosophers have debated throughout the ages. Unfortunately, no really compelling answer has yet emerged. In reality, the answer to this question is not that difficult to come by. What it requires is critical thinking, a little deductive reasoning, a little inductive reasoning, some observation. What it does not require is faith in any way, shape, or form. Faith and critical thinking are not compatible. They don't go together. They never have, and they never will. The following is a brief, simple, but credible explanation for the origin of God. Consider the reaction of primitive man to certain natural phenomena. Things like earthquakes, lightning, thunder, eclipse of the sun, eclipse of the moon, etc. These things must have been very terrifying to him. In an effort to understand them and to perhaps gain some control over them, he began to ascribe them to spirits of one kind or another, fire spirit, earth spirit, rain spirit, etc., much the same way as our American Indians did. By having some entity or some being responsible for these events, gave man the idea that perhaps the being or spirit could be persuaded to show mercy. And the devices he used were prayer, sacrifice, ceremony, etc. And sure enough, these devices did seem to work, some of the time at least. In fact, they worked just enough of the time to perpetuate man's belief in spirits and in the spirit world. This was the beginning of man's supernatural, spiritual help he can apply to everyday life. At some point in man's evolution, he became more and more self-aware, and especially aware of his own mortality. There were some very important questions that needed answering. Who was he? Who made him? Where did he come from? Was there any purpose and meaning to his life? And especially, what happened to him after death? Well, very fortunately, the groundwork had already been laid for creation of another spirit, the Heavenly Father, the all-loving God. And this concept gave comfort to many, many people. It provided a meaning to their life, provided protection from harm, and the promise of a happy life in the hereafter. It is certainly no coincidence that the Heavenly Father should have the exact same qualities as a kindly, loving, protective human father here on earth. This is central to my argument. Of course, there were obvious discrepancies in this picture. What about mass shootings in public places? What about children born with debilitating birth defects? What about natural disasters killing thousands of people? And of course, what about the Holocaust? How could a loving father permit such things to happen? It certainly should make one think. The theologian has a convenient, pat answer for these discrepancies. It is God's will, and man cannot possibly understand God's will. Another explanation has its origin in the Garden of Eden, where God supposedly gave man free will and a choice between following his law or succumbing to the ways of the devil. Apparently, a mass shooter has decided to align himself with the devil. But why does this personal decision by one individual cause so much pain and suffering for innocent bystanders, many of whom may have been pious, God-fearing people? Does this make any sense? It is often said there are no atheists in the trenches, and I believe this to be true. However, this doesn't prove the existence of God. What it does is underlying man's need to believe in a superior power by faith. Faith is a curious thing. It's belief in something without a shred of evidence to back it up. However, faith does provide a lot of comfort to many, many people. But what faith requires is a complete suspension of qualities supposedly given to us by our Creator. Critical thinking, rationality, logic, observation. I wonder if our Creator expects us to suspend these qualities when examining Him directly. A very good question. Someone is bound to say, without God, there can be no morality, no yardstick for behavior. Well, I disagree with this. Morality can be taught to the child by the parent without any mention of the Almighty. There is a sound logical reason for teaching ethical, honest, and compassionate behavior. This benefits the individual, which benefits society as a whole. That's my take on the matter. Thank you for listening, and I really welcome your comments for and against.